Hello, this is Russell Almond with the Choristers Guild, and welcome to the Open Fifth podcast, where we discuss musical notes from churches, schools, the community, and everything else from C to G. So today we have a very special guest with us, Victor C. Johnson. I just know him as Victor, but he is a fantastic composer and a wonderful human being, and I am so excited to have him on the podcast today. And he is going to be talking about navigating the school world of music, whether that be directing or putting together a budget or just, he's going to talk a little bit about more of that. So I'm not going to steal his thunder. But I just wanted to give you a little bit more of an idea of who Victor is. So he is a composer, but he also is the school choral editor for Choristers Guild, and we're very excited to have him on our team. But he also was a classroom music teacher and conductor for 18 years at the Fort Worth Academy of Fine Arts. So he is very experienced on this subject, and as I always try to have people who know way more than me talk about things that I have no clue on. So I am very excited to have Victor with us today. So welcome, Victor. Thanks for coming on the podcast with us.
Hey, Russell. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just start off. What are some of the challenges that you might encounter when it comes to working in a school in the realms of music?
Well, I think some of the main challenges that you see would be having a proper budget, having proper administrative support from principals, vice principals, whatever. Making sure that you communicate really well with parents and getting their buy-in to your program, and making sure that you create a good flow of what you're doing in your class.
Yeah. What would you say is one of the keys to working with administration? Like how would you do that?
I think the main key is always communicating with them and telling them, letting them know what you're doing in the classroom, doing an impromptu performance and inviting them in to see what you're doing with your kids and what the kids are learning. But always just being open with them about what you're doing, what needs you may have for the class, what concerns you may have with certain students, or even what concerns you have with curriculum and how that, like a state-based curriculum, really affects what you're doing in your classroom.
Yeah. Have you found any, when you mentioned a curriculum, have you found like, this is not my field, so that's why I'm asking I don't know these things. But for schools, what is it really difficult to find if you're switching states or switching districts? Is curriculum going to be more or less free or open, or are you going to be really, like you were saying, like statewide curriculum? What is that going to look like? How do you find those things out?
Well, every state has its prescribed curriculum that you use and that you base your lessons on. Okay. So it's not really hard depending on what state you're in, but trying to make sure that you cover the entire curriculum through the year or semester or however long you have your kids. Sometimes that gets a bit tricky, and you have to really properly pace what you're teaching along with any concerts you may have and concert prep and special performances that come up that you don't know about or you hadn't planned for.
Right. Do you have any tips on how to fit all that in?
My thing was always to, I had a calendar with 50 million Post-it notes, that told me, okay, this week, this is what's going on, but, next week or in 2 weeks coming up, this is what we're going to, have to face or whatever. So just trying to remain organized is the big thing. And I know we get in the middle of performance season, like Christmas is coming up, and you've got like 15 different performances, but you want to also make sure that you're paced with what you're teaching curriculum-wise remains in focus and remains at the center of what you're doing with the business that you have.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing that, for me is primarily a church musician. Like I don't think about those type of things where it's like having to, I'm always thinking performance, performance, performance. When's
Right.
the next one? What do I get? So yeah, that's a really good insight on having to keep those things together and balanced. So
Yeah.
thinking about that and a little bit of organization, how would you, like, say you're going into a new semester? What does your planning look like going into a new semester?
Well, for me, like if I were to start in the fall, I've laid out exactly, what dates I have for like major events, like a fall concert, winter concert, and then I plan backwards. So I'll say, okay, I need 6 weeks to get ready for this concert. So I'll go 6 weeks, figure out when I need to purchase my music, when I need to start to introduce that music to my choirs, and lay all that out first. And then I'll say, okay, now on top of what I'm doing here with the performances, I've got to incorporate what they need to know to become strong musicians and base my curriculum planning on that. And so I plan for the concert, and then I take the curriculum and insert it into my weekly lesson plans to make sure I'm covering everything that I need to cover to make sure that the kids are really successful in
Yeah.
what they're doing.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So you kind of start with the big events, but then integrate the curriculum
Right.
with your
Right.
lots of post-it notes that go all over your calendar, right? So yeah, the what else? Let's think a little bit more. So we got kind of the planning.
Mhm.
You talked about being involved with administration. So what about planning with when it comes to the budget? You mentioned that as one of the challenges. What do you do with communicating and figuring out what budget you need, what stuff you need, how you get how does that fit with administration? Just tell us a little bit more about how that might work.
Well, I was really fortunate to have a really supportive admin and a really good budget, but I know that that is not always the case in some schools. So you really have to look at exactly what you need and how to work your budget around what's needed and make sure that you're making really smart purchases. There are a lot of publishers now that are doing collections. So you get, 10 pieces in a collection
Mhm.
that's reproducible. So
Yeah,
investing in those type of um, um, books, if you have a small budget, will really help to make that budget seem bigger. Another thing would be to try to get as much community support or parental support to help build your budget. I know a lot of schools have limits on fundraisers they can do,
okay,
but if you can get businesses to invest in your program, or get parents to make any kind of small donation to your program, that will help stretch your budget and get more funds for you to use on your students and in
right.
your classroom.
Yeah. Well, I know that you mentioned the collections, and I believe Choristers Guild, we have a few of those. So I will drop the link in the description. And I know that Victor, he is currently working on some new stuff that'll be coming up in the next year. And so
Yeah.
we're looking forward to that. Is there any kind of preview that you can give us on that?
Sure. We have two collections coming out. Together We Sing, which is going to be a collection of 8 pieces for two-part choirs.
Very cool.
And then we're going to do Together We Sing at Christmas, which will be
Awesome.
8 pieces for two-part, again, with Christmas, holiday, winter themes.
Yeah, very cool. Well, I will. So everybody, make sure that you are looking out for those pieces that are going to be coming up, because I'm sure they're going to be absolutely fantastic. So just kind of finishing up, what would be some kind of like finishing idea that you say, okay, this, if I'm going to leave you with one thing to take away as a school director, what would that piece of advice be?
I think I would say to, no matter what challenge you have, always keep your kids first
Hmm.
and always show them that they mean the world to you and that you're totally concerned about them and their learning and their well-being. And if they feel that you really care and that you love them for more than just what they can do in the classroom, then you've bought a lifelong musician,
Hmm.
and they will do whatever you need them to do musically if they know that you care and that you're concerned.
Yeah, that is, yeah, that's fantastic advice. I think even more than the school world, that's a fantastic advice to, and that's part of the Choristers Guild mission goes for people. We're enabling leaders to nurture the musical and spiritual growth of children, youth, and adults, and that's part of that growth is that personal connection.
Exactly.
And I think that that is fantastic advice, and I know that I, as well as all of us, can always take that more to heart as we go in our different areas of leadership and ministry. So, well, thanks, Victor, for coming on today. I
Yeah,
appreciate all the words of wisdom, and maybe we'll have you on again some other time. We'll talk a bit more about maybe composing or something else, and we'll
sounds
get a
great.
little bit more there. So
Cool.
thanks for being with us, and I appreciate it.
Thanks, Russell.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us today on the Open Fifth podcast. And if you haven't checked it out, maybe you're thinking, okay, school choral isn't really my thing, even though a lot of what he said we can apply to any type of choral realm. Uh, Maybe you can go back to episode 4 from this first season and check out where we talked about navigating the church music life. So we are trying to cover all types of different topics on the podcast this season. But if you have any questions on what might have been said, or if you have another topic suggestion, please leave a comment below, and we will try to get it. We actually only have one more episode left in this first season, but we have a special guest that's going to come on. But I'm going to make you wait to hear who it is. So make sure you check back for to see episode 6 and see who might be coming up next. And as always, if you haven't already, make sure to click the subscribe button and the notification so you hear about all of the new episodes. And thank you again for watching the Open Fifth podcast.